The music in the bar was too loud, the kind that made conversations lean closer and mistakes feel smaller than they were. Hannah Brooks stood near the counter, one hand wrapped around a sweating glass of cheap whiskey she hadn't planned on ordering. Manhattan nights had a way of doing that to her, turning plans into accidents, accidents into regrets. "Come on," her friend laughed, nudging her shoulder. "You always back out." Hannah forced a smile. She hated that sentence. She hated how familiar it felt. The bar was crowded, polished concrete floors, dim amber lights, reflections of the city glowing through tall windows. A place where people with money pretended not to care how much they had. Hannah cared. Rent was due in 9 days. Her father's hospital bill sat unread in her bag like a silent threat. "Just a dare," Maya said. "One kiss. That's it." Hannah followed Maya's gaze. He sat alone at the far end of the bar. No phone, no drink in his hand, no smile. Just a man in a dark jacket, shoulders relaxed, posture straight, eyes forward as if the noise didn't touch him. He wasn't handsome in a loud way. No flashy confidence, no invitation. He looked like someone who didn't need to prove anything to anyone in the room. "The most serious man here," Maya whispered. "I dare you." Hannah laughed, a thin sound. "That's not funny." $500, someone added from behind them. "I'll Venmo you right now." Her heart stuttered. $500 meant groceries, gas, a payment toward her dad's medication. It meant breathing room. Just a little. She looked again at the man. He hadn't noticed them. Or maybe he had, and simply didn't care. Hannah drained her glass. "Fine," she said. "One kiss." The walk across the bar felt longer than it should have, each step louder. The air seemed to tighten, like the room itself was watching. She stopped in front of him, suddenly aware of how ridiculous this was, how exposed she felt. He turned his head slowly. Up close, his eyes were calm, not curious, not amused, just assessing. "Hi," Hannah said, already hating how small her voice sounded. She didn't give him time to respond. She leaned in and kissed him. It lasted maybe 3 seconds. No spark, no heat. Just a brief, soft press of lips. She pulled back, heart racing, ready to laugh it off. He didn't move. He didn't look shocked. He didn't smile. He studied her, quietly, like she had just crossed a line only he could see. Around them, the noise of the bar seemed to fade. Hannah felt something cold settle in her chest. "Sorry," she said quickly. "It was a dare." For the first time, his expression changed. Not anger, recognition. And somewhere deep in her gut, Hannah knew this kiss hadn't been a joke to him at all. And she had no idea what she had just stepped into. Hannah stepped back first. She gave a short, awkward laugh, the kind people used to smooth over embarrassment, and lifted her hands slightly, as if to say no big deal. Her friends were already watching from across the bar, wide-eyed, waiting for the punchline, waiting for the man to react like any normal stranger would. He didn't. He stayed exactly where he was, his body still, his gaze fixed on her face with an intensity that made the space between them feel too small. Not offended, not flattered, just focused, as if he were replaying the moment in his head, frame by frame. "Sorry," Hannah said again, too quickly. "It was just a dare." For a second, she wondered if he hadn't heard her over the music. Then he spoke. "People usually don't touch me without asking," he said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It cut clean through the noise around them, low and steady, like a line drawn in wet cement. Hannah's stomach tightened. "I know," she said. I didn't mean." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. Up close, she noticed details she hadn't before. The faint scar near his jaw, the way his eyes didn't wander, didn't flick to her lips or her body. They stayed on her face, reading her. "You're nervous," he said. It wasn't a question. She swallowed. Most people would be. Something like amusement flickered behind his eyes, but it vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. You should be careful, he said. The words were simple, but the weight behind them wasn't. Hannah forced another smile. I will be, I promise. She took a step back, then another, creating distance, desperate to get away from the pressure she couldn't name. She turned toward her friends, already bracing herself for their laughter. She felt his presence before she heard him move. Wait! Her body reacted before her mind did. She stopped. He stood now, taller than she expected, his shadow stretching across the floor toward her. People nearby glanced over, sensing a shift they couldn't quite explain. You don't even know my name, he said. Hannah hesitated. You didn't ask for mine. That earned her a pause. A real one this time. Fair, he said. For a brief moment, something unguarded crossed his face. Curiosity, maybe, or recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by control. Go back to your friends, he added, before this turns into something it doesn't need to be. Her heart beat faster. Is that a threat? No, he said. It's advice. Hannah nodded slowly, every instinct telling her to listen. She walked away, not looking back until she reached her group. Did you die? Maya whispered. What did he say? Hannah shook her head. Nothing. That wasn't true, but she didn't have the words for what she felt. Not fear, not excitement, something heavier. Like a door had opened behind her, and she hadn't seen who was standing on the other side. Across the bar, the man watched her leave, and for the first time in years, Nathan Cole felt something he didn't allow himself to feel. Interest. And interest, in his world, was where people got hurt. Hannah didn't feel safe until she reached the sidewalk. The cool night air hit her face, sharp and grounding, and only then did she realize how tense her body had been inside the bar. Her shoulders ached, her jaw hurt from clenching it too long. Behind her, laughter spilled out as the door swung open and closed, the music swallowing the moment like it had never mattered. But it had. Are you okay? Maya asked, looping an arm through hers as they walked toward the subway. You look like you just kissed a cop or something. Hannah tried to laugh. It was nothing. That was a lie, and she knew it. She could still feel his eyes on her, steady and unreadable, like she'd been measured and filed away somewhere in his mind. Not as a flirtation, not as a joke, as information. On the platform, Hannah leaned against a cold metal pillar and checked her phone. $500 sat in her account now, transferred without a message. The money should have made her feel relieved. Instead, it made her stomach twist. The train roared into the station, wind whipping her hair across her face. She stepped inside, found a pole to hold onto, and stared at her reflection in the dark window. She looked the same tired eyes, same cheap jacket, same woman who had learned to keep her head down and survive. So why did she feel like something had shifted? Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She frowned. Spam calls were normal. Texts at this hour weren't. She hesitated, then opened it. You shouldn't have done that. Her breath caught. Hannah glanced around the subway car, suddenly aware of every stranger. A man reading. A woman scrolling. No one looking at her. She typed back before she could stop herself. Who is this? The reply came almost immediately. You kissed a man who doesn't exist the way you think he does. Her pulse picked up. This wasn't funny. Maya's idea of a prank didn't stretch this far. Is this a joke? Hannah typed. Because it's not landing. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. For your sake, I hope you walk away now. A chill crept up her spine. From what? She asked. This time, the pause was longer. The train slowed, lights flickering as it entered a tunnel. Hannah's reflection fractured across the glass. From him! Her fingers hovered over the screen. Why? She typed. The answer came as the train pulled into her stop. Because people who get noticed by him don't stay ordinary. The door slid open with a hiss. Hannah stepped onto the platform, heart pounding. She turned back, half expecting to see someone watching her. No one was. Another message buzzed. You're already on his radar. Be smart enough not to move closer. The train doors closed. The car disappeared into the tunnel, leaving her alone under harsh fluorescent lights. Hannah stood there for a long moment, phone clenched in her hand, the echo of the words settling deep in her chest. She thought of the man's calm voice, his warning, before this turns into something it doesn't need to be. She had kissed him for a dare. Someone else had noticed. And whatever game she had stumbled into, she was no longer invisible. And once someone like him sees you, there is no such thing as walking away untouched. Hannah didn't sleep. She lay on her narrow bed, with the phone face down on her chest, as if the screen itself might light up again and confirm that the message hadn't been real. The room was quiet except for the hum of traffic outside and the old refrigerator clicking on and off. Ordinary sounds. Normal life. She clung to them like proof that nothing had changed. But it had. At 3 a.m, she gave up. She sat up, swung her legs over the side of the bed, and opened her laptop. The glow of the screen washed over her face, making her look paler than she felt. She typed the name she'd overheard at the bar when someone greeted him quietly before backing away. Nathan Cole. The search results loaded almost instantly. Too instantly. A LinkedIn profile appeared at the top. Clean. Minimal. Private investor. No photo, no endorsements, no work history beyond vague titles and dates. Hannah clicked it, her brow furrowing. No connections. That alone was strange. She opened another tab. Instagram, Facebook, X. Nothing. No tagged photos. No mentions. No blurry party pictures from 10 years ago. No digital footprint at all, as if the man had stepped into existence fully formed and untouched by the internet. Her fingers moved faster. She searched business registries next, half expecting to find nothing again. Instead, pages of results appeared. LLCs. Holdings. Shell companies layered over one another like stacked mirrors. Warehousing. Logistics. Real estate acquisitions along the East Coast. Too many for one man. Hannah leaned back in her chair, a slow unease spreading through her chest. This wasn't normal wealth. This was quiet power, the kind that didn't want to be seen. Her phone buzzed suddenly, making her flinch. Unknown number. She stared at it, then answered before she could talk herself out of it. Hello? There was a pause. Breathing on the other end. Controlled. You're digging, the voice said. It was male, calm. Not the same voice from the bar. Older, maybe. Who is this? Hannah asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Someone giving you a chance, he replied. Stop searching his name. That's not an answer. A faint exhale. People like Nathan Cole don't survive by accident. They survive by erasing variables. Her grip tightened around the phone. Am I a variable now? Silence. Then, you were supposed to be a joke. The words hit harder than she expected. A dare, the man continued. A forgettable moment. You changed that. By kissing him? Hannah asked. By being noticed, he said, and by not being afraid enough. The line went dead. Hannah stared at the screen, her reflection staring back at her from the dark glass. Her heart pounded, not with panic, but with something colder. Realization. She looked back at her laptop, at the empty social media profiles, the layers of companies, the deliberate absence. Nathan Cole wasn't hiding, he was removed. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text, this time. No number. Delete what you found. This is the only warning you'll get. Hannah closed her laptop slowly. She understood now. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This was danger. And somewhere in Manhattan, a man who didn't exist online already knew exactly who she was. Because the scariest people weren't the ones you could find, they were the ones who found you first. Nathan Cole didn't call. He appeared. Hannah realized that only after she stepped out of the coffee shop on 46th Street, the paper cup warming her palms, her mind still half lost in a restless night of broken sleep and unanswered questions. The morning rush pushed past her in sharp suits and earbuds, everyone late for something important. She blended in the way she always had, head down, moving with the current. Until the current stopped. A black sedan idled at the curb, too clean for the street, too still. The rear window rolled down just enough to reveal him. Nathan. No jacket this time, white shirt, open collar. He looked like a man on his way to a boardroom, not someone who had erased himself from the internet. His eyes met hers without surprise, as if he'd known exactly when she would walk out. Hannah's first instinct was to turn and run. Her second was anger. "You're following me," she said, stepping closer before she could lose her nerve. "No," he replied calmly. "I'm intercepting you." She let out a humorless laugh. "That's supposed to sound better?" He studied her for a moment, then opened the door and stepped onto the sidewalk. Up close, the city seemed to bend around him. People glanced, then looked away. "You didn't delete what you found," he said. "It wasn't an accusation, it was a statement." "I didn't find much," Hannah shot back. "That was kind of the point." A corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. "You found enough." She crossed her arms, clutching the coffee to her chest like a shield. "What do you want?" Nathan glanced up and down the street, then back at her. "To make you an offer." Her pulse kicked up. "I'm not interested." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm making it anyway." He gestured toward the car. "Get in. 5 minutes." "No." 3, he countered. "Public place. Windows down. You walk away if you don't like what you hear." Hannah hesitated. Every warning in her body screamed at her to leave, but curiosity and something stubborn held her in place. "Talk," she said. Nathan didn't raise his voice. "You kissed me. That put eyes on you, not just mine." "I didn't ask for that." "No," he agreed, "but now you have it." She felt heat rise in her chest. "So this is your way of fixing it? Buying me off?" His expression hardened, just slightly. "This is my way of keeping you alive." The words landed between them, heavy and unmistakable. He continued, "I can give you protection, quiet protection, an apartment you don't pay for, a job that doesn't ask questions. You stay close enough that I can see problems before they reach you." Hannah stared at him. "And what do you get?" His eyes held hers. "Control over the variable I didn't plan for." Silence stretched. Slowly, Hannah shook her head. "I'm not your problem to manage." Nathan nodded once, as if he'd expected that answer. "Then you're on your own." He stepped back toward the car. "Just remember, walking away doesn't mean you're no longer seen." The door closed. The sedan pulled into traffic and vanished. Hannah stood there, heart racing, coffee gone cold in her hands. She had just refused safety, and she had no idea how much danger that choice would cost her. The first thing Hannah lost was her job. Not dramatically, not with shouting or security escorts. It happened quietly, the way real damage usually does. She was halfway through setting up lights for a private networking event in Midtown when her supervisor pulled her aside, face tight, voice lowered. "We got a call," he said, "from the venue." Hannah frowned. "About what?" He hesitated. That pause told her everything before the words did. "They said there was a concern about your conduct. Allegations. Photos." Her stomach dropped. "What photos?" He handed her his phone. The image on the screen made the room tilt. It was her. Outside the bar, laughing, leaning toward Nathan, cropped close enough to suggest intimacy, far enough to hide context. Another photo followed. Her entering a building she didn't recognize. Time-stamped. Labeled. She felt heat rush to her face. "This isn't what it looks like." He sighed. "That's the problem. It looks like something." Within 10 minutes, her badge was deactivated. Her name quietly removed from future schedules. No argument. No appeal. Freelance meant disposable. Hannah stepped back onto the street with her bag slung over her shoulder and no place to go. The city felt sharper now, louder, unforgiving. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She didn't want to answer. She did anyway. "You should have taken the offer," the voice said. "Nathan! You did this?" she demanded. ducking into an alley to escape the noise. No, he replied evenly. I warned you it would happen. Anger flared hot and fast. Someone sent fake photos to my boss. Someone's watching me. Yes, he said, and now they know you're unprotected. Her hand shook as she gripped the phone. So this is how you convince people? Ruin their lives until they say yes? Silence. Then, quieter. This isn't me convincing you. This is them punishing you. Who is them? She asked. People who don't like loose ends, Nathan said. People who think fear works faster than reason. Hannah swallowed hard. And you're different? No, he said. I'm just better at keeping my people alive. She leaned her forehead against the brick wall, the rough texture grounding her. I didn't do anything wrong. I know. That simple sentence almost broke her. I can fix this, Nathan continued. Your job. The photos. The narrative. But only if you stop pretending you can walk through this untouched. Hannah closed her eyes. She thought of her father's bills, her empty calendar, the way everyone had believed the worst version of her without asking. If I say yes, she asked, what does that make me? There was a pause. Not hesitation. Consideration. It makes you someone under my protection, he said. Nothing more. Nothing less. She pulled the phone away, staring at it. At the city. At the life she was losing piece by piece. I need time, she said. You don't have much, Nathan replied. The call ended. Hannah slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold pavement, knees drawn to her chest. She felt exposed, targeted, smaller than she'd felt in years. This was just the beginning. And whoever had set the trap wasn't finished yet. Because the next move wouldn't cost her a job. It would cost her her freedom. Hannah noticed the change in people before she noticed it in herself. The barista who used to chat with her every morning now kept the conversation short, eyes sliding away too quickly. A neighbor who once held the door open pretended to check his phone instead. Even her inbox felt emptier, replies delayed, opportunities quietly withdrawn without explanation. It was as if the city had agreed to step back from her all at once. She spent the afternoon walking. No destination, just movement. Her phone stayed silent in her pocket, heavy with the weight of everything she wasn't answering. The skyline loomed above her, glass and steel and success stories she no longer believed in. By evening, her legs ached and her thoughts felt frayed at the edges. She stopped at a small diner near the river, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. She ordered coffee she didn't want and stared at the reflection of fluorescent lights in the window. That was when she felt it. The sense of being watched, not obvious, not dramatic, just a subtle pressure, like a hand hovering too close to her back. Hannah didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Her instincts had sharpened over the last 48 hours. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She answered without speaking. You're costing us time, a woman's voice said. The tone was calm, controlled, educated, the kind of voice that didn't need to raise itself to be heard. Who is this? Hannah asked. A pause. A soft exhale. Someone cleaning up a mess? The woman replied. You! Hannah's fingers tightened around the phone. I didn't do anything. No, the woman agreed. You just exist in the wrong place. The words landed cold and precise. You were never meant to matter, the voice continued. A dare, a joke, something forgotten by morning. Instead, you made yourself visible. Hannah swallowed. If this is about Nathan, it's about control, the woman cut in smoothly, and you are disrupting it. Understanding dawned slowly, like a bruise forming beneath the skin. This wasn't random. This wasn't just damage control. Someone had decided she was a problem. What do you want? Hannah asked quietly. For you to disappear? The woman said. Socially, professionally, emotionally, until you're small enough again. Hannah felt anger rise, sharp and bitter. And if I don't? A hint of amusement slipped into the woman's voice, then the consequences will stop being inconvenient and start being permanent. The line went dead. Hannah sat there long after the call ended, coffee untouched, the hum of the diner filling the silence. She understood now. This wasn't about Nathan protecting her or controlling her. This was about someone else deciding she was leverage. She left cash on the table and stepped back into the night. Her phone buzzed again almost immediately. Nathan. She stared at his name until it blurred. "I know," his message read. "They've marked you." Her hand shook as she typed back. "So what am I now?" The reply came slower this time. "A liability," he wrote, "and the most dangerous kind." Hannah looked up at the city lights, at the endless movement of people who had no idea how close she was to being erased. She had wanted a normal life. Now she was standing in the middle of a war she didn't understand. And the people who wanted her gone had just made their first direct move. Hannah said yes that night, not out loud, not to Nathan. She said it in the quiet of her apartment, sitting on the edge of her bed with her shoes still on, her coat still zipped, as if leaving again at any second might save her. She stared at the wall until the city noise blurred into a low hum and the truth finally settled in. She couldn't outrun this. Her phone lay on the mattress beside her. Nathan's last message still glowed on the screen. "They've marked you," she typed slowly. "What does that actually mean?" The reply came minutes later. "It means they'll use you." Her chest tightened. "For what?" Another pause. Longer this time. "To get to me." The weight of that answer pressed down hard. Hannah closed her eyes. She thought of the woman's voice on the phone. Calm, certain, like someone who had already decided her fate and moved on. "So you're the reason," Hannah typed. "I'm the problem because of you." Nathan didn't deny it. "Yes." The honesty startled her more than any excuse would have. "But not because you kissed me," he continued. "Because you didn't disappear afterward." Hannah let out a bitter laugh. "I didn't know I was supposed to." "Most people sense danger and retreat," he replied. "You didn't. That made you interesting." Interesting. The word felt obscene. "I don't want to be interesting," she typed. "I want my life back." There was no immediate response. When it came, it was longer than anything he'd sent before. "You won't get it back by pretending this isn't real," Nathan wrote. "You crossed into a world that doesn't announce itself. It erases things quietly. Reputations first, then options, then people." Hannah's throat went dry. She stood and paced the room, her bare feet cold against the floor. "So what are my choices?" Silence. Then, "Stay close to me where I can see threats coming, or stay alone and hope they lose interest." "Will they?" she asked. No. The simplicity of the answer made her stop walking. She sat back down, hands pressed to her knees, breathing shallow and fast. "Who is doing this?" she asked. "Names, faces, something." Nathan's response came slower, deliberate. "One of them is someone you've never met. A woman who thinks emotions are tools and weakness is contagious. She believes I've gone soft." Hannah swallowed. "Because of me?" "Yes." That word echoed in her chest. She thought of herself as invisible for most of her life. Replaceable, easy to overlook. Now someone powerful thought she mattered enough to destroy. "If I agree to your protection," Hannah typed, "what happens to me?" Nathan didn't answer right away. "When you come close to me," he finally wrote, "you stop being collateral. You become a participant." Hannah stared at the screen, heart pounding. A participant in a world she never asked to enter, but one she was already trapped inside. She typed one last message. "When?" The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. "Tonight," Nathan replied. Hannah exhaled slowly, the decision settling into her bones. She wasn't running anymore. She was stepping forward. And once she did, there would be no way back to the life she used to know. The building didn't have a sign. Hannah noticed that first, as the car slowed and turned onto a quiet street she'd walked past 100 times without ever looking twice. No doorman, no velvet rope. Just a clean glass entrance that reflected the city back at itself. Ordinary enough to disappear. Expensive enough to be intentional. Nathan stepped out first. "Stay close," he said, not unkindly, as he offered his hand. Hannah hesitated only a second before taking it. His grip was firm, steady, not possessive. It wasn't reassurance that calmed her. It was certainty, the kind that didn't wobble under pressure. The elevator ride was silent. No music, no small talk. Just the soft hum as they rose, floor numbers lighting up one by one. Hannah watched them climb, feeling the same tightening in her chest she'd felt the night she agreed to come. She reminded herself she had chosen this. That mattered. The doors opened into light. Glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling, revealing the Manhattan skyline like a private painting. The city glowed below them, distant and unreal. Everything inside the penthouse was muted. Clean lines, neutral colors, no personal photos, no clutter. A place designed to be controlled. "It's beautiful," Hannah said before she could stop herself. "It's secure," Nathan replied. "That's the point." She noticed the cameras next. Small, nearly invisible, one in each corner. She noticed the doors within doors, the way the windows didn't open. A cage, she thought, but a golden one? Nathan moved through the space with ease, pouring water into a glass and handing it to her. "You can stay here," he said. "You don't have to be near me all the time. You don't have to talk to anyone you don't want to." "And the rules?" Hannah asked. He met her gaze. "There are only two. You don't lie to me, and you don't leave without telling me." Her jaw tightened. "That sounds like control." "It's transparency," he countered, "and survival." She took a sip of water, her hands still trembling slightly. "How long?" Nathan didn't answer right away. He looked out at the city instead. "Until the pressure shifts," he said finally. "Or until you decide this isn't worth it." "And if I decide that?" Hannah asked. "Then I help you disappear properly," he said. "With a new name, a new place, a clean break." Her heart skipped. "You can do that?" "Yes." The ease with which he said it was terrifying. Hannah set the glass down. She walked toward the window, resting her hand against the cool surface. The city looked peaceful from up here. Safe. Detached from consequences. "This isn't what I imagined," she said quietly. Nathan joined her, stopping a careful distance away. "What did you imagine?" "A monster," she admitted. "Someone loud, violent." He nodded once. "That's what people expect. It keeps them from seeing the real threat." She turned to face him. "And what's the real threat?" He met her eyes. "Believing safety is the same as freedom." The words settled between them. Hannah understood now. This place would protect her body, her reputation, maybe even her future, but it would cost her something else. And as she stood there, surrounded by glass and silence and power, she realized the most dangerous part wasn't the enemies outside. It was how easy it would be to stay. Lillian Moore arrived the next morning like she belonged there. Hannah was still getting used to the silence of the penthouse when the elevator doors opened and a woman stepped out with effortless confidence. Mid-30s, impeccably dressed, soft blonde hair pulled back in a way that looked casual, but wasn't. She carried a leather folder under one arm and a calm smile that felt practiced, not fake. Worse than fake. Polished. "You must be Hannah," the woman said warmly. "I'm Lillian." She extended her hand. Hannah hesitated, then shook it. Lillian's grip was light, almost gentle. "I've heard a lot about you," Lillian added, eyes bright with curiosity. "Mostly good things." Hannah glanced toward Nathan, who stood a few steps behind them, unreadable as ever. "Good things?" Hannah asked. Lillian laughed softly. "That you're not what people expected." Something about that made Hannah uneasy, though she couldn't explain why. Lillian moved through the penthouse like she'd memorized it years ago. She poured herself coffee without asking, sat at the island, crossed her legs with ease. "I help Nathan manage complications," she said. "Logistics, strategy, damage control." She looked at Hannah again, this time with something like sympathy. "I'm sorry about your job," Lillian added. "That wasn't supposed to happen so fast." Hannah stiffened. "You knew?" Lillian's expression softened. "Of course, but listen to me, this isn't your fault." Nathan's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. Lillian leaned forward. "You walked into something bigger than you could have known. Anyone would have been caught off guard." Hannah felt her shoulders relax despite herself. It had been days since anyone had spoken to her like that. Like a person, not a liability. "I get it," Lillian continued. "Being here feels overwhelming, like you've lost control." That hit too close. "But you haven't," Lillian said gently. "You still have choices. Nathan isn't a monster, no matter what people say. He protects what matters to him." Hannah glanced at Nathan again. He didn't deny it. Lillian smiled. "And right now, that includes you." Warmth crept into Hannah's chest. She hated how badly she wanted to believe it. "I can help you," Lillian said. "Navigate this world without losing yourself in it." "How?" Hannah asked. "By teaching you where to stand," Lillian replied, "and where not to." They talked for over an hour, about boundaries, about perception, about how power really worked. Lillian spoke like someone who had survived storms Hannah hadn't even seen yet. When Lillian finally stood to leave, she touched Hannah's arm lightly. "You're safe here," she said, "and you're not alone. Remember that." After the elevator doors closed, Hannah exhaled. "She seems kind," Hannah said. Nathan's gaze followed the closed doors. "She's very good at what she does." That night, alone in the guest room, Hannah checked her phone. A new email sat unread. No sender name, just a file attached. The subject line read, "For your eyes only. Proof you're being used." Her heart started to race. And somewhere else in the city, Lillian Moore smiled to herself, already 3 steps ahead. Because the sweetest allies often carried the sharpest knives. Hannah stared at the screen for a long time before opening the file. The penthouse was quiet, the kind of silence that pressed against the ears. Nathan was gone business, security, things she didn't ask about anymore. She sat alone at the long kitchen island, the glow of her laptop reflecting in the polished stone like a second, colder version of herself. She clicked. At first, it looked like nothing. Folders, timestamps, a spreadsheet with columns she didn't recognize. Then she scrolled. Her breath caught. There were transactions, large ones, routed through shell companies she had already seen during her late-night search. Dates lined up with recent shipments. Locations matched warehouses Nathan had mentioned in passing. And then, at the bottom of the folder, a video file. Hannah hesitated before pressing play. The footage was grainy, taken from a security camera. She recognized the room immediately, the penthouse office, Nathan's desk, his chair, and herself. The angle showed her entering the room earlier that afternoon when she'd been told to wait while Lillian handled something urgent. The footage cut, jumped forward, then showed her leaving, empty-handed. Below the video sat another file. A report. Stamped, formatted, official-looking. It listed her name. Hannah Brooks, suspected courier, possible internal leak, a risk assessment written in cold, professional language. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't evidence. It was a narrative. Her phone buzzed. Lillian. Hannah didn't answer. Another buzz. A text this time. "You should talk to Nathan before he sees that." Her heart started to race. Hannah slammed the laptop shut just as footsteps echoed from the elevator. Nathan entered the penthouse with 2 men behind him, his expression unreadable, but his posture rigid. He dismissed the men with a glance and turned to her. "We need to talk," he said. She swallowed. "I know." He gestured toward the island. "Sit." She did. Nathan placed a flash drive on the counter between them. Black, unmarked. "This was delivered anonymously," he said. To my legal team, an hour ago. Hannah's pulse roared in her ears. What's on it? His eyes searched her face, looking for something she couldn't identify. Proof, he said, that you accessed sensitive information without authorization. Her chest tightened. That's not true. Then explain, he said quietly. Hannah reached for her laptop, hands shaking, and opened the file again. She showed him the video, the timestamps, the gaps. This is edited, she said. Someone cut out the middle. Nathan watched in silence. And this report, she continued, voice breaking. It's designed to make me look guilty before I can defend myself. Nathan's jaw tightened. He leaned back slightly, eyes dark. You understand how this looks, he said. Yes, Hannah whispered. That's why it scares me. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Finally, Nathan spoke. Until I know for sure, I have to treat this as real. Her heart sank. So what happens to me? Nathan stood. You don't leave, you don't contact anyone, and you don't touch anything you haven't already. She stared up at him. You don't believe me? I don't know, he replied. And in my world, that's dangerous. The elevator doors closed behind him, leaving Hannah alone with the file still glowing on the screen. She realized then what Lillian had done. She hadn't offered protection. She had handed Hannah the knife and let Nathan see the blood. The door didn't lock behind Nathan. It didn't need to. Hannah realized that an hour later, when the silence became unbearable, and she finally tried to open it. The handle turned easily. The hallway outside was empty, softly lit, calm. Too calm. She stepped out, heart pounding, and took 3 cautious steps before a man in a dark suit appeared from around the corner. Please return to your room, he said politely. I just need air, Hannah replied. You can have it inside, he said. Not threatening, not kind. Final. She went back. That was when it sank in. She wasn't a guest anymore. She sat on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the wall. The penthouse that had once felt like safety now pressed in on her from every side. The glass, the cameras, the quiet hum of systems she didn't control. Her phone had no signal, not dead, disabled. Hannah laughed softly, the sound brittle. Of course it was. She thought of everyone who had ever told her to be careful, to stay small, to not draw attention. She had followed those rules her whole life, and still, here she was. Accused, isolated, disposable. Hours passed, or minutes. Time blurred. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Nathan. It was Lillian. She stepped inside with the same calm grace as before, her expression gentle, concerned. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, studying Hannah like a doctor observing a patient. I'm so sorry, Lillian said softly. Hannah looked up, eyes burning. You did this. Lillian didn't deny it. She sighed instead, as if burdened by responsibility. I tried to protect you, she said, but you didn't listen. You set me up, Hannah snapped. You gave me that file. Yes, Lillian said evenly, because Nathan needed to see how vulnerable you are. Hannah stood, fists clenched. Vulnerable? Or convenient? Lillian's eyes sharpened. You were never meant to stay, she said. You were meant to pass through. You complicated things. So you destroyed me? Hannah demanded. Lillian tilted her head. Destroyed is such a dramatic word. I prefer corrected. The words hit harder than a slap. You don't belong here, Lillian continued. And men like Nathan don't survive by choosing emotion over structure. Hannah felt something inside her crack open, not fear this time, but clarity. You're afraid, Hannah said quietly. Lillian smiled. Of chaos? Always. And I'm chaos to you, Hannah added. Lillian's smile didn't reach her eyes. You're proof that control can slip. She straightened. Nathan won't hurt you. He'll just remove you. Quietly. Hannah swallowed. And you? I'll keep things running, Lillian said. Like I always have. She opened the door, then paused. If it helps, none of this is personal. The door closed. Hannah sank back onto the bed, breath shaking, the truth settling in. Nathan didn't trust her. Lillian wanted her erased, and everyone else had already stepped aside. She was completely alone now. And when a woman stands alone in a world built to crush her, she has only two choices: disappear or learn how to fight. Hannah didn't cry until she was sure no one was watching. She sat on the bathroom floor, back against the cold marble, knees pulled tight to her chest. The room smelled faintly of expensive soap she hadn't chosen, towels folded by hands that weren't hers. Everything in the penthouse reminded her she didn't belong. She pressed her fist to her mouth and let the sound stay inside. Crying wouldn't help. Begging wouldn't help. Waiting wouldn't help. Thinking might. She stood, splashed water on her face, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red but focused. Somewhere under the fear and humiliation, something else was waking up. The same instinct that had kept her alive her whole life. She needed one person, someone outside this glass cage, someone she trusted, her sister. Hannah moved to the bedroom window, careful to stay out of camera angles she'd started mapping in her head. She pulled the curtain just enough to see the city below. Her phone was dead to the world, but she noticed something else, now an old tablet tucked into her bag. Forgotten. Its screen cracked but functional. She powered it on. One bar of Wi-Fi flickered to life. Enough. She logged into an old email account she hadn't used in years. Typed fast. Careful, Maya. If you get this, don't reply here. I need help. I'm not safe. She attached nothing, said nothing more. Then she waited. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, a response appeared. No subject line, just 3 words. I knew it. Relief hit her so hard she had to sit down. Maya Brooks had always been the sharp one. Law student. Obsessed with patterns. The kind of person who noticed what others missed and remembered what they tried to forget. Tell me everything, the next message read. Slowly. Hannah did. She described the file, the edited video, Lillian, the isolation, Nathan's doubt. Maya's reply came almost instantly. They framed you, she wrote, but they were sloppy. Hannah's heart skipped. How? Because power hates redundancy, Maya replied, and you don't plant evidence unless you're hiding something bigger. Maya asked for timestamps, locations, names Hannah remembered. She asked about the flash drive, about who had access, about the gaps. Hannah answered everything. Then Maya sent one sentence that made Hannah's breath catch. Did you notice the report cites a compliance review that doesn't legally exist yet? Hannah frowned. What do you mean? I mean the regulation they're claiming you violated doesn't take effect for another 3 weeks, Maya wrote. I just checked federal filings. Hannah stared at the screen. That wasn't a mistake. That was proof. Maya continued. If Lillian used future language, it means she wrote it, or had it written, which means she didn't expect anyone like me to look. Hannah felt something shift inside her chest. Hope, small, dangerous, real. What do we do? Hannah typed. Maya's reply was calm, precise. We wait, she wrote, and then we flip the board. Hannah leaned back against the bed, exhaling slowly. She wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time since this nightmare began, the people who thought she was disposable had made one critical mistake. They underestimated the wrong woman. Hannah didn't sleep that night. She sat at the edge of the bed, tablet balanced on her knees, rereading Maya's messages until the words stopped shaking. They framed you. They were sloppy. It sounded almost unreal, like hope dressed up as logic. But Maya didn't speak unless she was sure. That was the difference between them. Hannah survived storms. Maya mapped them. At dawn, the city light crept through the glass, turning the penthouse pale and exposed. Hannah stood and pressed her palm to the window, grounding herself. For the first time since she'd arrived, she wasn't thinking about escape. She was thinking about timing. Her tablet buzzed again. We need leverage, Maya wrote. Not emotion, not sympathy. Leverage. Hannah typed back slowly. I don't have access to anything. You do, Maya replied. You're just afraid to use it. Hannah closed her eyes. She knew what Maya meant. Nathan. Up until now, Hannah had tried to stay small, cooperative, invisible enough to survive. She had accepted his rules, his silence, his distance, believing that compliance might earn her safety. It hadn't. It had only made her easier to move. She typed one word. How? Maya answered. You stop waiting for permission. 2 hours later, Hannah heard footsteps outside her door. Not Lillian's. Heavier, slower. Nathan. He stood in the doorway, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, eyes tired but alert. He looked at her like a man weighing options. You shouldn't be awake, he said. Neither should you, Hannah replied. He paused, surprised by her tone. We need to talk. Yes, she said. We do. She didn't sit. She didn't step back. She met him in the open space between the bed and the window. You don't trust me, she said calmly. Nathan's jaw tightened. Trust is built on evidence, Hannah cut in, and you're letting someone else decide what that looks like. Silence fell. I know about the regulation date, Hannah continued. The report uses a compliance rule that doesn't exist yet. That's not a mistake. Nathan's eyes sharpened. Who told you that? My sister, Hannah said. She's a law student, and she's better at this than the people you pay. That landed. Nathan studied her, really studied her, as if seeing her for the first time. You contacted someone outside? Yes, Hannah said, because you stopped listening. A muscle ticked in his jaw. That was a risk. So was believing Lillian without checking, Hannah replied. Her voice didn't shake. But you did that anyway. The air between them felt charged now, dangerous but alive. I'm not asking you to save me, Hannah said. I'm asking you to look again. And if you don't, then I'll make my own exit. Public, loud, messy. Nathan went still. You wouldn't, he said. Hannah held his gaze. Try me. For a long moment, the only sound was the city waking up below them. Then Nathan spoke, quieter than before. If you're right, this won't end cleanly. Hannah nodded. It was never going to. She had made her choice. She wasn't disappearing. She was stepping into the fight. The rooftop gala was designed to impress. Glass railings framed the Manhattan skyline. Lights strung overhead, like a false promise of celebration. Men in tailored suits laughed too loudly. Women in silk dresses smiled with practiced ease. Champagne flowed, and with it, the illusion that nothing dangerous ever happened in places this beautiful. Hannah stood near the edge, hands clasped in front of her, her pulse steady despite the noise. She wore a simple black dress Nathan's team had chosen for her. Elegant, forgettable, safe. At least, that's what it was supposed to be. Nathan stood across the space, deep in conversation, his posture relaxed in a way she now recognized as calculated. His eyes flicked to her every few seconds. A silent check-in, a reminder. They were in this together now. Lillian arrived late. She always did. It gave her control over the room, over the narrative. She moved through the crowd with effortless confidence, greeting donors, investors, people who thought they knew exactly who she was. When her gaze landed on Hannah, her smile widened just a fraction. Predatory. Hannah felt it, but she didn't look away. Maya's voice echoed in her head. Timing matters. The music softened. A host stepped forward to make a brief announcement about partnerships and shared futures. Applause followed, polite and empty. That was the signal. Hannah reached into her clutch and pressed send. Across the city, emails landed in inboxes that mattered. Federal offices, legal departments, journalists who knew where to look and what to question. Files that had been quietly copied, annotated, and cross-checked now moved faster than anyone in this room realized. Lillian's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowning. Then it buzzed again. Her eyes darted toward Nathan, toward Hannah, toward the exits. Nathan's earpiece crackled softly. He stiffened, just slightly. Now, he murmured. The air shifted. Men Hannah hadn't noticed before stepped closer to Lillian, their expressions unreadable. At the same time, two unfamiliar figures moved in from the opposite side of the rooftop. Badges flashed briefly under their jackets. FBI. The laughter faltered. Conversations died mid-sentence. "What is this?" Lillian demanded, her voice sharp, controlled. Nathan stepped forward. "An audit," he said calmly. "One you scheduled too early." Her eyes widened, just for a second. "You used her," Lillian hissed, nodding toward Hannah. "You chose her over me?" Nathan didn't raise his voice. "I chose the truth." Agents spoke quietly to Lillian now, hands guiding her toward the elevator. Cameras appeared, phones lifted, whispers spread like wildfire. Hannah stood frozen as Lillian was escorted away, her perfect composure finally cracking into fury. "This isn't over," Lillian snapped, her eyes burning into Hannah's. "You don't know what you've done." Hannah met her gaze, calm and unflinching. "Yes," she said softly. "I do." The elevator doors closed, sirens wailed somewhere below, and as the city lights flickered on around them, Hannah understood one thing clearly. There was no going back. Everything had finally come into the open, and the fallout was just beginning. The rooftop emptied faster than Hannah expected. What had been laughter and clinking glasses minutes earlier turned into hurried exits, murmured excuses, and eyes carefully avoiding one another. People didn't want to be remembered as witnesses. They wanted clean memories. Clean hands. Hannah stood near the railing, the city wind cool against her skin, watching the last of the guests disappear into the elevator. Her heart was still racing, but underneath it was something steadier now. Control. Not power clarity. Nathan approached her slowly. Up close, she could see the cost of what had just happened, written in the tightness around his eyes. Years of structure cracked open in a single night. "You did exactly what you said you would," he said. "I told you it would be loud," Hannah replied. He let out a breath. "Lillian underestimated you." "She underestimated everyone who doesn't look dangerous," Hannah said quietly. Below them, flashing lights reflected off the glass of neighboring buildings. FBI agents moved with purpose now, phones pressed to ears, coordinating the fallout. Names were being spoken, accounts frozen, deals unraveling. Lillian's name wouldn't be whispered anymore. It would be documented. One of Nathan's men approached, his voice low. "They found more than we expected. Derek Vaughn's involved." Nathan went still. Hannah recognized the name immediately. The lawyer. The quiet one who never smiled. "What kind of involved?" Nathan asked. "Forgery, obstruction." "And something older," the man replied. "It ties back to your wife's case." The air seemed to leave Nathan's lungs. Hannah's chest tightened. She had known there were layers to this betrayal, but not that deep. Nathan turned away, bracing his hands against the railing, staring out at the city as if it might give him answers. "So it wasn't an accident," he said softly. "It never was." "No," Hannah said. "It was convenient." Nathan closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, something fundamental had shifted. The man who turned back to her wasn't just calculating outcomes anymore. He was grieving. "I built everything around control," he said, "and the people closest to me used it against me." Hannah stepped closer, careful, respectful of the space between them. "You trusted the wrong people," she said. "That doesn't make you weak." He looked at her then, really looked at her. "You walked into this with nothing to gain," he said, "and you still chose to fight." "I gained something," Hannah replied. "What?" "Myself." Sirens grew louder below as another set of agents escorted someone else out of the building. Derek Vaughn this time, face pale, confidence stripped away. The sight sent a ripple through Nathan's remaining team. The truth was spreading, and it was hungry. Nathan straightened. "There will be consequences," he said. For me, for everything tied to this. I know, Hannah replied. You're free to walk away now, he said, with protection, money, a clean slate. Hannah shook her head gently. I don't need to disappear anymore. A beat passed between them. Nathan nodded once. Then neither do I. As dawn crept closer and the city began to breathe again, Hannah understood something that felt almost unreal. The people who tried to erase her had exposed themselves instead, and the world they controlled was collapsing under the weight of its own lies. Because when truth finally finds the light, there is no shadow deep enough to hide in. The consequences came quietly, not with explosions or headlines screaming names across screens, but with meetings behind closed doors, sealed documents, and calls that ended relationships Nathan had built over decades. Power didn't vanish overnight. It bled out slowly, one signature at a time. Hannah watched it happen from the sidelines. They had moved her out of the penthouse 2 days after the gala, not because she was in danger anymore, but because the building itself had become evidence. She stayed in a modest apartment arranged by Nathan's remaining legal team, a place with creaking floors and sunlight that poured in without asking permission. It felt real, grounded. Nathan visited once. He didn't bring gifts. He didn't bring promises. He brought honesty, and it sat heavier between them than anything else ever had. They're dismantling parts of the operation, he said, standing near the window, hands in his pockets. The logistics arm is gone. Accounts frozen. Properties under review. Hannah nodded. And you? I'll survive, he said. Then, after a pause, but not as I was. She studied him. He looked different now, not weaker, stripped. Like a man who had lost armor he didn't realize had been cutting into him for years. They offered me a deal, Nathan continued. Immunity on certain charges. Cooperation. Names. Hannah's chest tightened. Are you going to take it? Yes, he said simply. That surprised her more than anything else. Why? She asked. Because I'm tired, Nathan replied. And because I don't want to spend the rest of my life defending a system that killed the one person I loved and nearly destroyed you. The words settled deep. Hannah looked down at her hands. They were steady. She hadn't noticed when that started happening. What happens to Lillian? She asked. Nathan's jaw tightened. She won't walk free. Not this time. Too many trails. Too many people willing to testify once fear stopped working. And the lawyer? Hannah pressed. Derek Vaughn will face charges tied to my wife's death, Nathan said. The case is being reopened. Hannah closed her eyes briefly. Justice didn't always come clean, but this was close enough to matter. Nathan turned to her. I know I failed you when you needed belief, not control. She met his gaze. You stopped when it mattered. I should have listened sooner, he said. Yes, Hannah agreed softly. You should have. They stood in silence, not awkward, not heavy, honest. When he left, he didn't ask her to stay. He didn't ask her to wait. He let her choose. That was the difference now. That night, Hannah lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the city sirens far away, laughter drifting up from the street, life continuing without permission. She thought about everything she had lost, and everything she hadn't. She still had herself. Her name was clean, her future unwritten. She had paid a price to survive this world. But for the first time, the cost felt fair. Because survival isn't about winning, it's about walking away with your soul intact. Hannah's life became quiet in a way she had never known before. Not empty, not lonely, just calm. The apartment Nathan's legal team had arranged was temporary, but Hannah chose to stay longer than necessary. It sat on a tree-lined street, far from glass towers and surveillance cameras, a place where mornings smelled like coffee and warm bread from the corner bakery. No one watched her when she walked outside. No one whispered her name. For the first time in weeks, her phone stayed silent for reasons that weren't threatening. She spent her days doing small, ordinary things, updating her resume, sending applications, sitting in the public library with a notebook, relearning how to think without fear interrupting every thought. At night, she read until her eyes burned, anything that reminded her the world was bigger than the nightmare she had escaped. Healing wasn't dramatic. It didn't arrive with relief or closure. It came in fragments, in the way her shoulders slowly stopped tightening when someone stood too close. In the way she no longer flinched at unknown numbers. In the way she slept through the night without waking to imagined footsteps. One afternoon, Maya visited. They sat on the floor with takeout containers between them, laughing softly like nothing had ever gone wrong. But when the laughter faded, Maya studied her closely. "You're different," she said. Hannah smiled. "I know." "Stronger?" Hannah considered it. "Clearer." Maya nodded. "That's better." Nathan didn't contact her for weeks. She noticed that too. Not as absence, but as respect. He hadn't promised distance. He had simply given it. And that mattered more than any apology. When he finally did reach out, it wasn't with urgency. Just a message. "I wanted you to hear it from me. Lillian took a plea. Derek didn't. Trial's moving forward." Hannah read it twice, then set the phone down. She felt no triumph, no hunger for revenge, only release. That chapter was closing without asking anything more from her. A few days later, Hannah received an email offering her a full-time position at a non-profit focused on event planning for legal advocacy groups. The pay wasn't extravagant, but it was steady, honest, earned. She accepted. On her first morning, walking into an office where no one knew her past, Hannah felt something loosen in her chest. She wasn't starting over. She was continuing. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, her phone buzzed again. "Nathan." "I'm leaving the city," his message read. "Not running, just choosing something else." Hannah stared at the words. "Good," she typed back. A pause. "Would you like to have dinner before I go?" he asked. No expectations, just honesty. Hannah looked around her apartment, at the quiet, at the life she was building piece by piece. She typed one word. Yes. She didn't know what that dinner would mean. She only knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next would be her choice. And sometimes, the real reward isn't what you gain. It's knowing no one can ever take you from yourself again. They met at a quiet restaurant near the river, the kind of place that didn't try to impress anyone. No velvet ropes, no private rooms, just low light, soft music, and tables spaced far enough apart to let conversations breathe. Hannah arrived first. She chose a seat by the window and folded her hands in her lap, surprised to find she wasn't nervous. Curious, yes. Careful, always, but not afraid. The woman who had walked into that bar weeks ago felt like someone she remembered, rather than someone she still was. Nathan arrived on time. No suit, no entourage, just a dark coat, open collar, and a face that looked lighter than she remembered. When he saw her, he didn't smile immediately. He paused, as if making sure this moment was real. "Hannah," he said. "Nathan," she replied. They sat. For a few seconds, neither spoke, not because there was nothing to say, but because they were finally allowed to choose their words without strategy. "I'm leaving tomorrow," Nathan said gently. "West Coast. Quiet place. No history." Hannah nodded. "That sounds right." "I didn't want to disappear without saying goodbye," he added, "and without saying thank you." She tilted her head. "For what?" "For not letting me lie to myself," he said. "For standing up when it would have been easier to let me decide your fate." The waiter came and went. Water was poured. Orders taken. Normal interruptions in a normal life. "I used to think control was the same as safety," Nathan continued. "Now I know it was just fear with better manners." Hannah smiled faintly. "Fear is very convincing." They talked about ordinary things after that. Her new job, his plans, the city they had both loved and learned to leave behind. There were no promises slipped between sentences, no unspoken demands, At one point, Nathan looked at her for a long moment. "I won't ask you to come with me," he said, "and I won't pretend I don't want to." Hannah met his gaze. "That's the first thing you've said that makes me consider it." He laughed softly, a real laugh, unburdened. "I'm not the man I was," he said. "I won't be again." "I wouldn't want you to be," Hannah replied, "and I won't be who I was either." They finished dinner slowly, savoring the simplicity of it. When they stepped outside, the night air was cool, the river dark and steady beside them. Nathan stopped. "Whatever you choose," he said, "make sure it's because it adds to you, not because it feels safe." Hannah nodded. "I already am." She surprised herself by reaching for his hand, not to hold on, just to acknowledge what had been built honestly. They stood there a moment longer, then let go. As Hannah walked away, she didn't feel loss. She felt possibility, because the strongest connections aren't built from need. They're built when two people finally stand free. Hannah didn't see Nathan again for 6 months, not because he disappeared, and not because she was waiting. Life simply moved forward the way it was meant to when no one was pulling the strings. She settled into her new job, learned the rhythms of work that didn't come with fear attached, and rebuilt something she hadn't realized was broken until it was gone. Trust in her own choices. The trial ended quietly. Lillian Moore accepted a long sentence in exchange for cooperation that came too late to save her. Derek Vaughn was convicted after evidence surfaced linking him directly to the forged reports and the cover-up of Nathan's wife's death. The system didn't celebrate, it corrected. That was enough. Hannah never attended court. She didn't need to watch them fall to feel whole again. The message from Nathan came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. "I'm back in the city, just for a day. Would you like coffee?" She read it once, then again. "Yes," she replied. "I'd like that." They met in daylight this time, in a small cafe near a park where children played and people argued about nothing important. Nathan looked different again, calmer, less guarded, like a man who had learned how to live without armor. They talked about work, about the places he'd been, about the future without defining it too tightly. When he reached across the table and took her hand, it wasn't instinct or need. It was choice. "I didn't come back to ask for a second chance," he said. "I came because I built a life that finally had room for someone else." Hannah felt the truth of that settle in her chest. "I won't shrink for you," she said. "I wouldn't want you to," Nathan replied. They didn't rush. That was the miracle. A year later, they stood in a small garden outside the city, surrounded by people who knew them as they were, not as stories. No press, no spectacle, no ghosts from the past. Just sunlight, laughter, and the quiet certainty that they had earned this moment. When Hannah said yes, it wasn't to safety or rescue, it was to partnership. Later, as they walked away hand in hand, Hannah thought about the dare that had started everything. The kiss meant to be a joke. The night she almost disappeared into someone else's narrative. She smiled. The world had tried to turn her into a lesson. Instead, she became a woman who chose her own ending. And in the end, she wasn't rewarded with power or wealth. She was rewarded with a life that finally belonged to her. So that's how the story ends. And if you're still here with us right now, honestly, that means something. It means something in this story touched your heart in a quiet way. Maybe it reminded you of a moment when life felt unfair, when you were misunderstood, or when you had to choose yourself even though it hurt. What this story really teaches us is simple, but not easy. You don't heal by controlling the world. You heal by controlling yourself. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Hannah didn't win because she became powerful. She won because she refused to become bitter, silent, or small. She chose clarity over fear, dignity over revenge. Another Stoic truth says, the obstacle is the way. The pain, the betrayal, the loneliness, Those weren't detours. They were the path that shaped her into someone unbreakable. And maybe that's true for you too, even if you don't see it yet. If this story stayed with you until now, take that as a sign. You're stronger than you think. You're allowed to choose yourself. And healing is not weakness, it's courage. If this message spoke to you, please like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel. We're really glad you stayed.